Good evening, friends. Today evening, we are here to discuss social skills for managing deteriorating patients in smaller setups. Friends, 95% of Indian surgeons work in smaller setups. When I say smaller setups, that means people who are in district or tahsil level, people who are even in metros, who run a 10-15 bedded nursing home. Now the problems come in smaller systems where there is not enough of backache, there is not enough of equipment, planning, and people live with a concept, I have done nothing wrong, so why should a complication happen to me? But that does not happen in actual life and in practice. Hence, last time we discussed the technical aspects, the scientific, the surgical aspects of managing a difficult situation. And my emphasis was on prevention of such episodes. Today we are going to discuss exclusively the social skills. When I say social, that means your communication skills, your body language, your relationship with all concerned agencies, be it a senior surgeon in the same area, be it your policeman, be it your politician and press. When we are working and running a unit solo, either a couple or two couples together, the problems are multiple. My today's lecture is out of my whole life experience, because till 2 years ago I was running a overloaded 40 bedded unit of my own and ran it successfully. Welcome, Dr. Habib. And so the first point is anticipate and analyze the issues. When I say anticipate and analyze, surgically, when you evaluate a patient, you look at the disease process, the risk factor, the chances of having a cardiorespiratory or a hepatobiliary or a wound or a nutrition related complication. That is part one. Part two is evaluate the patient, evaluate the family, evaluate how much nuisance value the family has. Friends, a very important lesson this evening is do not bite more than what you can chew. When I say that, I mean do not admit a VIP when you do not have infrastructure. Do not admit a person with a higher nuisance value. We know certain professions all across country have got higher nuisance value, like politicians, press, police, advocates who go to court any day, anyway, so that to them it doesn't matter if they file 2 cases against you. Treat them if you have enough infrastructure. Do not treat them in a compromised unit. That is how the problems happen. Welcome, Professor Malik. So, besides the sickness of the patient, evaluate the nuisance value index. Somehow we have classification of complications by Clevin, but we have yet not had classification of nuisance value of the family, which decides the problem. I have already enumerated the professions which are likely to produce nuisance value. So if you are in a smaller setup, avoid them. Oblige your corporate friends, oblige your friends in medical college and send them over. Remember, every district has a session judge, but even a session judge is not supposed to settle all the cases. There are some cases meant for High Court, some cases meant for Supreme Court. Similarly, in surgery, do not think yourself to be the Supreme Court. We have a very common myth in surgical fraternity. Somebody who was a SR or assistant professor in All India Institute, somebody who was a junior consultant in Sir Gangaram Hospital, once he leaves that place, he still is living with a false sense of security and wisdom that, oh, I could manage this case. I have managed hundreds of such cases in Gangaram Hospital. Now he forgets, now he is in Panipat, where infrastructure is nil, where the cardiology support, the anesthesia support, ICU support is poor. So you may be the same surgeon who was in All India Institute or Sir Gangaram Hospital, but when your location changes, your infrastructure changes. Do not bite those big bolus now in periphery what you cannot digest. Now all the things, the red alert starts, you should start thinking whenever there is Clavin grade 3 or upwards complication. When you visit such patients, you should look concerned but not scared. At the same time, you should not be joking and laughing around when somebody has a fecal fistula and you are cracking a joke on rounds. A doctor is supposed to be well dressed. When I say well dressed, means formally dressed. It doesn't need to be expensive dress. He needs to look sober. He should be seemingly concerned about the patient. Sit down with the patient, talk in detail, talk even irrelevant history, which should convince the patient. Now, after visiting such a patient which is not doing well, somebody who is having 104 fever, is having bile leak from the drain, no, this is the patient who is likely to undergo further complications. Do not talk in corridors. For such a patient, very politely invite them to your office, your room, and then sit down with them. Always talk to more than 2 people. You may have to wait for 1 hour, half an hour for relatives to come. But when they come, sit down with them. Very politely explain them the situation. Also, make a line diagram of the operative procedure, a complication related, try to mention and elaborate about that, and seemingly convince that all the best possible is being done. Also, involve the family in decision making. I would say like this, look, I am one of the best guys in this particular belt. My infrastructure is better than most of the surrounding hospitals, but neither I am Apollo Hospital nor I am All India Institute. I am sure there some doctors are brighter than me, their infrastructure is better than me, and your patient might have a shade better chance of getting well in one of these hospitals. I talk like this to every patient of pancreatitis, that if you can go to All India Institute, or if you can afford Medicity or Gangaram Hospital, please go to them. Out of 1000, not more than 6 to 8 patients. This is my hardcore scientific study. When I talk like this, not more than 8 patients have either the connection to get a bed in All India Institute or have money to pay for Medicity. And I think in fairness to that family, it is my right and duty to intimate them that you will be better off there only. When you have said this in the beginning, then those 992 patients will stay comfortable with you. When I have explained them beforehand that such severe pancreatitis on admission, though right now your patient has no lung problems, but some of them will develop lung complications. Some of those lung complications may require a non-invasive ventilation or an invasive ventilation. So, when you have explained the family beforehand and when actual those complications happen, then the level of dissatisfaction is less. So, always talk about the details of diagnosis, expected complications, the modalities of treatment, what are the best modalities, and where are they available. If you are fair like this, then the chances of cropping up problems is much less. Always talk to more than 2 people and in a comfortable environment. If they are upset, offer a glass of water. Talk in a language which they understand and draw line diagrams and hand over that piece of diagram to the attendants saying that you can carry this is for you, and see how clearly when you happen to cross the corridors they are still looking at it and telling the other relatives that look, Dr. So-and-so, he has so nicely explained, this is the problem, here is the leak occurring. An informed family, the informed written consent is legally important. Informed mental consent. When I get a necrotizing pancreatitis, I tell them 30% of them will die. Then I look at their expression. And when they say die, most of the surgeons which I have found, they say khatra hai. No, khatra hai, other family doesn't understand what is khatra. Khatra they might understand that he is going to take longer time or there is going to be higher bill. Until they use the word, I always preach, always say mar sakta hai. Till you use mar word, it doesn't enter a common man, because he has come to the hospital with a purse full. He thinks now by paying cash nothing can go wrong. So friends, take a written consent in patient's handwriting or attendant's handwriting, and take, more important, a mental consent. Do not assure anybody. I only say, I will treat your father like my brethren. Can I promise life? My answer is no. Can I do my best? My answer is yes. Have some of my patient died in past? Yes. Have majority survived? Yes. So take the lead. A surgeon has to be a leader to prevent problems. Your behavior, your availability, your answering the questions would solve a lot of issues. A lot of medical legality will be dropped down. It will be buried. And now, as I said in the beginning, technically a deteriorating patient is considered Clavin 3 or onwards complications. Now there are patients who are gradually deteriorating, patients who are not doing well, somebody who has developed a fecal fistula, somebody who has developed a vesicovaginal fistula following hysterectomy, somebody who has wound dehiscence, somebody who is having bile leak. Now, these are the problems you fully understand are going to take lot of time to get well. Before the patient thinks of taking another opinion, it is always smarter to organize a second opinion. Now, where should the patient go? Who will be the surgeon for second opinion? Whom patient is going to meet is going to decide the faith, the medical legality, the problems in your nursing home. If the other guys where you are sending with the patient goes, say they have mucked up your case, such a complication should never happen, then you are doomed. Then here is a person who, after looking your bile duct injury, writes the diagnosis external biliary fistula, controlled, no evidence of active sepsis. And is going to, if the other guy says, well, 3% patients have this complication or 1% patient have this complication and there is nothing unusual, you will get well. That is a soothing experience. Now, if you are in peripheral practice, if you are in a smaller unit, you have to have some friends, either in the medical college or in the private sector, some surgeons of eminence whom people think are the ultimate, whom nobody will doubt. Now, until somebody was your classmate or a schoolmate, I'm not sure even how much he would help. But what is more important is you must have strong relationship with at least 2 people in each specialty in the area where you work, in an area where your public has a normal trend of second opinion. Like patients in neighboring Haryana to Delhi would always go for a second opinion to Medical College Rohtak, or in previous era with Jaipur Golden Hospital, which was approachable first corporate hospital. Well, now there are several of them in that area. So friends, the only route to success is you should regularly refer couple of cases every month for second opinion. Some TPA, some rich patients, you must serve in a plate to that consultant so that whenever you send a case to him, he speaks high about you. That is the blunt, bitter truth. You cannot call up somebody at 12 midnight and say, good evening sir, GD here, I was your senior resident in 1985. Now if you have not had any communication so long, who remembers 85 SR? None. Even people will not recognize if you were SR even 5 years ago. Until you regularly, the term I use, lubricate. Lubrication, financial, social, and I will conclude the role of Diwali in peripheral surgeons in the end. So that is a patient who is gradually worsening. Involve people of higher eminence than you, either from outside, and if you are a youngster, involve somebody local, some surgical uncle who would visit, touch the belly, look at the wound, and say probably the best is being done. And then gradually he will slowly tell something to the concerned surgeon that change the things like this. And if somebody requires a second exploration, there's no harm of calling an elderly senior friend from the same town who has again eminence more than you. Do not keep your ego high. But then there is a second opportunity where the patient suddenly deteriorates. Somebody collapses, somebody requires ventilatory support, somebody starts bleeding. What should you do? The first lesson is isolate the patient. In every facility, there should be an area like an HDU or an ICU where all the equipment, ventilatory, suction, oxygen, and drugs are kept consolidated. You should have a crash cart kind of a system which you will open only in such situations, so that you are not running from here and there to the chemist for a vial of soda bicarb or for adrenaline, noradrenaline, diazepam, midazolam or intubation equipment. Everything should be available in one box, and it should be on top of it labeled. Every 14th day it should be checked, so that when you need, you can't say last time this was used, we didn't replenish. Now in such situations, the most brilliant guy should be involved in planning and communication. Only one guy should communicate. What has happened? What we are going to do? What is the plan? What is the expected outcome? No nurse, paramedic, sweeper should be allowed to speak. And these people have to be trained. You don't get ready-made people ever. And the next intelligent guy should manage the airway, ventilation, vasopressors. Then the number 4 guys should be involved in executing the plan. There should be some clerical level person who should be calling up the cardiologist, the anesthetist, or whoever is available, that please rush to the spot. If you are anticipating a bigger crowd, if you are anticipating violent crowd, please call many of your medical friends. At the same time, you should intimate the police also. And dear friends, the police and politician, you have to keep obliged. You cannot have an enmity with them. You have to have opportunities so that at least if they do not help you, if they are not against you, if they are not siding you, they should not be against you. And this kind of relationship has to be maintained like a LIC policy. We pay the premium every year. We don't plan to die this year. So we may not have any violence for next 10 years. But investment in human resource is very important. Similarly, the role comes of a surgical uncle, an elderly person in your town or district who may not be technically brighter than you, but who has more public impact because he is operating in the same area for last 25 years. Hence, if you are not pally with him, never try to compete an old man. Let him live with his egos. Let me tell you, even your dog likes appreciation. And somebody born 20 years ahead of you and operating 20 years ahead of you, there's no harm of being pleasant to that gentleman. Once in a while, he can be of great help. And mind it, you cannot call such people at the time of disaster by just paying them 2000 rupees or 1000 rupees or whatever is fee. Most of them are saturated with money. They only expect some respect. And if not respect, no criticism. I keep hearing a lot of times the young guy says, oh, he cannot do a lap hernia. He's just a duffer, old timer, right? But remember, he knows how to manage your fecal fistula. Remember, he knows how to remove your retained sponge and he will balance you out on that aspect. And public is willing to undergo second surgery with him, even the third surgery. But with a youngster, the wound infection will shift to the old man. Not because the old is bright, because his mother was also operated by him, his grandmother was operated by him. So the faith factor is on the grey hair side. You may be more brilliant, but apna time aayega, hold on, wait for your days to come. But at least, I would say, pamper the old man. Offer him help, offer him assistance, offer him covering if he is away. Be polite to him. Investing in people, investing in police, investing in politicians is always good. Because in my current assignment, my hospital has got a security department with around 90 security people working. There's a full-time lieutenant colonel retired who is head of security. But what is with me? For 35 years, I worked in the crime heartland of Haryana. What was my security? Me, my relationship. With all those I am telling, with all humility, this evening on a Sunday, I can say, if somebody asks me, what did I earn in last 35 years? I say, number one, my name was my address. Number two, I worked the busiest unit without a security guard and without a marketing department. So, friends, have relationship which always pays. Now, if the things are further worsening, then with your friends, try to know, can we manage this patient here? And if we manage, if during further management the patient dies, will the family accept the death here? And if no, then resuscitate the patient, go along with the patient or send one of your doctors and get that patient admitted into a better system. When there is a complication, take the total charge. When you go to the bed, spend time. Talk sweet to the patient. Do the dressings yourself. Let the best staff nurse, the best paramedic take care of that patient. Always have a strong communication system with the patient, family, and the hospital staff. there should be some internal secrecy system where some of your staff members, the attendants may be very pleasant to you, but when they sit in the canteen, they say, he has taken so much of money, the patient is not improving, he is still on ventilator on day 5. If something happens, we will break all the window panes. Then the other guy suggests, don't give him any money. In the end, we will see if the patient dies, we will take the money back. If the patient survives, it is up to us how much money to give. So there should be somebody in the system who will overhear these things and inform you secretly. Don't eat. This is important message today. And I have written it on my whiteboard several times in a year to remind my younger team. And it says, when God has created so much, why eat a dirty fish? The dirty fish means one patient who breaches your peace of mind, who keeps you text. Treat 992 patients well, peace, sweetness and smile. Those 8 patients which you cannot chew, when they are in a corporate hospital, they are segregated by chowkidars away from the patient. Nobody can see how much he is bleeding. The consultants will talk on the phone, will not even meet the relatives. They will pay 10 times the bill and still be satisfied. Because anybody who dies in Medicity or Apollo, it is assumed will go to Bekunt, because the family also proudly says, वहाँ तक ले गए थे, फिर भी नहीं बचा. Right? So it is a sense of satisfaction in the family. Why you want to take the disgrace? So those whom you cannot chew, don't bite them. Know your limitations. And if the things are worsening, break the bad news confidently, along with a physician or anesthesiologist or whoever critical care guy you have. 3-4 doctors should sit down and then break the bad news gradually. Like I would say, your uncle was having breathing difficulty. We were supporting it with first line of treatment by a non-invasive ventilation since last 4 hours, and now on that the breathing is still difficult, so we have to intubate him. His blood pressure was low, so we are supporting it with vasopressors. Then the next question, always the family says, बाकी तो सब ठीक है ना? Now, good evening Dr. Sidhu. Now the point I want to say, this patient, then I tell them, he's okay, but his breathing is controlled by ventilator. His blood pressure is controlled by vasopressors. He's surviving, he's alive, but everything will be okay only when he breathes of himself. His blood pressure and urine output is maintained by his body. Do not assure anything and try to serve everything in a sweet platter. If at times, with best of your effort, if a patient dies, you should never run away from the scene. A doctor, after seeing the crowd who runs away, is proven guilty beforehand. You should have your friends with you who will support you. And if you don't have 3-4 friends who can stand with you in difficult times, then stop living. We have no purpose to live if we don't have friends. The friends are by choice, the relatives are by compulsion. So we can always, by choice, select like-minded people. You help them, they will help you. When it comes to, if somebody dies suddenly, you must insist that we think we have done nothing wrong. Invariably, the blame will be on your nurse. She gave the injection and the patient died immediately. Invariably, the patient is hypotensive and so many medications are given. When the last medication is given, the patient dies. When the patient is sick, another golden point, when the patient is sick, let the family observe what you are doing. Let 1 or 2 people stand nearby and observe. Now, the common situations I have seen at that particular moment, when at the peak of the movement, the oxygen supply will get disconnected because sometimes the cylinders are not checked. The drill is not done every day. Nobody thinks anything can go wrong in their nursing home. When that situation happens, the doctor yells, "There's no oxygen. I have been telling beforehand also, you guys don't check oxygen." Or when the patient vomits, the suction doesn't work. Then the surgeon, out of frustration, yells and says, "You guys are negligent. This suction never works." So, some points I want to educate. Keep your head cool. The more difficult the situation, the sweeter you should become. So, you should say, when there is no oxygen, say the oxygen pressure is low, please switch on to a new cylinder. That is the right way of saying. When you say, when the suction is not working, say the suction is weak. Get the second suction. Do not find deficiencies in your juniors or in your staff, specifically when things are going wrong. Remember, always praise in public, criticize in private. So the next point is, when the death happens, do not ask for the bill. If the family asks, or even if it doesn't ask, you can always say, you can come later to settle the bill. If following a surgical procedure, the patient dies, and if you yourself volunteer, no, we will not charge anything, then they think something wrong has been done by the doctor, that is why he is not charging. You may not charge, but you should not say, I will not charge. You always say, you come after a couple of days, after your ceremonies are over, we can sit down and talk about the bill. 90% people will not come back. Now here I want to share with you a 95-110 philosophy, which I have always lived, practiced, and I have preached this 95-110 philosophy. This concept is, suppose you are going to treat 100 patients and charge 100 rupees to each one of them. This is simplifying. So that means you are going to earn 10,000 rupees out of 100 patients. So my concept says, in the beginning only we assume that 5 patients will pay you 0. Who are those patients? Somebody who dies, somebody who is referred suddenly, Somebody, the income tax commissioner, rings you up, Dr. Sharma, this is our peon's wife. Sometime the superintendent of police will ring you up that this is my Khan Sama's father, treat him in my account, and so on. So assume 5 patients will pay us nothing. And all those who get well, I will charge 110 rupees to 95 patients. And between 100 and 110, nobody minds. Right? So, in the end of the day, by charging 95 110 concept, you make 10,450 rupees. So, you have more money, you have peace of mind that you are clear, only 95 are going to pay. You know, in life, the frustration is the difference between what you expected and what actually happened. So don't expect much. Look at your total package. Don't look at what you earn from this patient. So friends, this Sunday evening, if I have to summarize the social skills which are needed for a small unit surgeon are: number 1, select your patients. Don't take too sick, don't take too rich, too affluent people whom you cannot satisfy. Have a committed team with role defined and a periodic code blue drill. Make a day fixed. Let's say every Thursday we will have a code blue drill. If you don't do that, you have an arrest after 6 months, it is a disaster. Let me tell you, the unit which has frequent code blues, there the patient survives. Wherever the code blue happens once in 3 months, nobody survives. Because people are not battle ready. They are not geared. Next, have good relationship with people of eminence in your neighborhood hospitals. Have 1 or 2 surgical uncles who will be of immense value to you. I have bailed out so many people in my area that if there is a complication, I tell them, you send the patient to me. And I will tell the patient, the doctor is paying your bill. I may not charge anything to the doctor. But when the patient gets well, the case is over. But these are the youngsters who have pampered the elderly guy on one or the other occasion. Only then the guy goes out and helps. For money, be clear, you cannot invite any elderly surgeon to come to your nursing home, because number 1, he is overworked. Number 2, he has lot of money already. So at 2 a.m., 2,000 or 5,000 rupees makes no difference. Have good relationship with police and politicians. They have lot of nonsense value. At least if that cannot help you, they will not create trouble for you. Select the professions. The high demanding professions should go to a heart center. Of my own, I have sent dozens of simple inguinal hernias to corporate hospitals in Delhi just because I thought one patient will drain me for next 2 days. So it is rather to treat 10 common people than a VIP. Hence, concluding everything, your technical surgical skills are of paramount value. Social skills are icing on the cake. If you are doing good technically, and good social skills will make your life easy. Good social skill alone without technicality is of no use. Thank you very much.